Melissa has to leave early, so I will evaluate the table topics portion, and I'll just be sort of repeat what Melissa said. Good organization, entertain us, and use all your time. With that, we will go to our prepared speech. Our speaker today is Nate Jenkins. The title of Nate's speech is The Jobs That Never Made It Onto My Resume. Nate?
Sorry. I should be good. Thank you, David. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. The jobs that never made it onto my resume. Over the years, I've had many oddball titles like cleaning lady, test dummy, field gopher, gardener, repair boy, therapist, bug boy. And as you probably can tell, many of these weird, odd titles have something in common. Besides the fact that they probably never made it onto my resume, and you'll likely never see them on my LinkedIn either, is they all kind of added to, in a quirky way, a quirky twist to my life experiences that always had me saying to myself, only in a redneck family would I ever find myself in this situation. Whether it was glorified housework or my family loaning me out to friends of the family to do questionable tasks, I always had myself, it made me question my childhood experiences. But where to start? So I'll start with my father, who often got me into many unusual situations that I probably never really wanted to be in. So he had me climbing in walls, climbing up in the attic, digging and climbing through holes in the ground, covered in dirt, covered in insulation, and getting me zapped, getting me thrown off ladders, and almost once or twice getting, pushed out a window if I wasn't quick enough. After working with him for several days in the field, our hands would be blistered, my eyes would be watery, even my voice would be gone, kind of like today. And it had me wishing to be going back home to my nice warm bed and a good shower. Thing is, when I was working with my dad, a warm shower was never in sight because being out in the field always took longer than expected. So if he said it was going to take 3 days, it might be 5, it could be 7. And so this meant many days where we had to take what my dad would call birdie baths. And for many of you who have never had or had the luxury of having one of my dad's birdie baths, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So basically, it consists of having a hot jug of water and a rag to clean yourself, because that's all we had in his trailer as we were working in the field in what we called the high desert, which was probably 60 or 70 miles away from home. And the only good part about this is I would often opt to go first and using the rag and the water before him, because obviously if you're going first, the water's a little bit cleaner. So like I said, it wasn't the best experience. Anyways, when I got a little bit older, my dad would often loan me out to his friends for questionable oddball tasks. And the one that I remember the most was Doug Roman. How could I forget Doug? Doug was probably the only man that made me wishing to go back to crawling in holes with my dad. This man had me doing his gardening, doing his cleaning, and even at times I would be his therapist, because he often had many different, issues at home that he needed to talk things out with somebody, and he felt like, pushing or sharing this with a young boy was the thing to do. So I don't know. It was fun, but looking back on it, it's kind of hard to see, it's kind of hard to see all the good things in those moments. But looking back on it, it often does help me become more grateful for life, because no matter how bad life gets, when I look back, I can always say, you know what, at least I'm not still working at Doug's. So it made me the grateful type of person. Now moving back actually a few years farther in life, so going back like a decade to when I was younger. Sorry, this is not chronological. We're going in reverse chronological order here. To moments when I'd be working with my mom. See, my mom, unlike my dad, wouldn't so much get me into situations as more forced me to figure out the situations that I got myself into. So it was much of a learning experience with my mother. It gave me independence, but also taught me accountability, which at a young age, I feel like were very, important things to learn as a young man. Furthermore, as a boy, I was very competitive in nature, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, which I felt like got me into a lot of situations that a lot of people would shy away from. I felt like I did this because I had something to prove, and maybe being both the youngest and the shortest boy in my family, maybe I did have something to prove. I don't know. I'm just connecting the dots. That's quite possible. But one experience was when I pushed myself to do door-to-door sales at my school, and I did this, which was outside my comfort zone, but I did this because it was part of a annual fundraiser that my school would do every year. And to kind of preface it, every year my school would partner with World's Finest Chocolates, which is basically a chocolate bar company, and we go out and sell things. But from my perspective, this was the masterful scheme of getting children to work for pennies on the dollar and not getting your assets thrown in for jail. But anyways, looking back on it, the prizes and rewards that they'd give the children really wasn't worth the hours we'd spend at the doors, knocking on random strangers' doors. As a kid, going up to an older adult was very intimidating, especially when you're kind of asking them for business. But the thing was, even though the prizes weren't really there, like I didn't really do it for the prizes, winning in itself was the prize for me, and that's what kept me going. See, I was very competitive even at this early age. And there wasn't one year where I wasn't several boxes ahead of everyone else. And I just was extremely competitive. And I would basically be banging on everyone. Well, I'd be banging on my neighbors' doors, trying to, give them my mischievous smile, grinning until they basically bought into my second grade or third grade cuteness, whatever year this may have been. And they would ask me, what do you have? And I would say milk chocolate, dark chocolate, caramel, crisp. And then I'd ask them, what are you planning to have today? And that'd be my response to when they started talking to me. And honestly, I would sell all the chocolates I could if they would let me. And my mother was always 15 or 20 minutes behind me for support. In looking back on many of my life experiences, both good and bad, the one that stands out to me the most is probably my experience. Most definitely it's my experience of, how should I frame this? Of when I took the title as Bug Boy. This job needed no training. The pay wasn't very glamorous, but then again, I was 4 and employment only lasted for 2 minutes. Anyways, I walked in the ice cream parlor where I was going with my dad to get a double scoop of my favorite ice cream. Was it chocolate brownie, chocolate chip, chocolate mint, chocolate fudge, double dark chocolate? I'm not sure. I just know it was chocolate. But wait, the story gets sweeter still. There was this lady, and we could hear her screaming the moment we walked in the door. And I walked in, I saw she was petrified, or she was petrified against the cashier stand, or behind the cashier stand against the wall. And I remember she was screaming, a bug, a green flying bug. And at that moment, it just piqued my interest. I ran around the corner, ran in there like I owned the place. And the moment I saw it was the moment I realized I wanted it. I'm taking it home. It's going to be my pet. And I ran in there. I wrestled it to the ground for about 2 minutes or so. And once I get it in my hands, it's mine. I remember the lady being so grateful that she gave me an ice cream in addition to it. And I was just so ecstatic. I was just like, oh, well, I mean, I didn't do it for the ice cream. I just did it because I wanted the bug. So when she gave it to me, I lit up like a Christmas tree. And then I went out to the car to tell my mom, look, Mom, I got a bug. And I just remember seeing my mom's face. Her eyes rolled back. She turned to the front because she didn't want to see it. And she started probably getting upset at my dad for letting me, take the bug home. But I just remember running there and be like, Mom, this is the best day of my life. And although I've had many strange jobs, especially before the age of 18, nothing will ever compare to the day I walked out with a bug in one fist and an ice cream in the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Melissa, our timers report first. Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, Nate, you spoke for 9 minutes and 2 seconds.
Oops.
Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tyler. Now, Melissa, your evaluation.
Thank you.
Nate, I love that story. I thought it was really entertaining, and we learned a lot about you. You caught us right with the title, which is the jobs that never made it to your resume. So I think we're all immediately intrigued by what you were going to say. I was first going to say I was very impressed with how few filler words you had. I started counting the because I think there were just 5 or 6. I only caught a no and a so maybe once, but I thought you did a fabulous job on that. You've improved a lot. I also like that you stood up and that we could see your, to the point where we could see your gestures. I thought that was a very smart thing to do. You also had great eye contact with the camera. In the future, if you can, I would have recommended, if your camera could somehow be eye level window, it's really hard because it's probably at desk level and you're standing. So sure you could fix that.
You said have it higher, like have the camera up.
I think so.
Okay.
If you can, yes, okay. Yeah, because it felt like you're looking down at us.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, my favorite stories were the Bug Boys story, and you probably could even. I wondered if you wanted to rearrange it chronologically, and you might have just done it because you wanted the Bug Boys story last. But my favorites were the bug story, the shower, like having to take the shower out of a bowl. And I really wanted to know, this is one detail I would add, is how old you were when you had to be the therapist to Doug. I thought that was very
16.
funny.
I was more just there listening.
Yeah.
I was just more there listening to his issues at home, I should say. Yeah.
Right. That was slightly, I'm sure, inappropriate. And I don't know if his problems were that this adult man was having, but he probably should have been telling his friend's 16-year-old son. So exactly, I just wanted to know how old. So that just adds a lot of humor, or possibly humor. Hopefully it was all appropriate. So those were my favorite stories. And then you went over. So maybe if you wanted to, you would cut out the candy selling story. Even though I know that was a really nice story also. But if you had to cut something out, then
which one?
That would have been the candy story.
Okay.
If you wanted to stay within your, was it 6 to 8 minutes? If you had to cut out a minute.
Yeah, definitely.
You're reviewing your speech. But great job.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right, that brings us to table topics and